What's up everyone? My name is Nick. I'm a trading performance coach. In today's video, we're going to be looking at overtrading and FOMO. I've put these two together because I think they are fairly well linked. I think that one kind of causes the other. Quite often you'll be in this sort of trap of feeling FOMO that leads to some overtrading, that leads to more FOMO, and it can be a bit of a vicious circle. I have on my channel a ton of other videos on trading performance, so make sure you check those out if you are new here. Also, really appreciate if you subscribe so you can be alerted for new videos, and drop this a like if you find it helpful. So let's jump into today's topic, overtrading and FOMO. I'm going to specifically look at identifying it and resolving it. And with always, I am using my own experience and the experience I have trading clients to improve their trading performance. Now, the first thing I'm going to touch on is what causes overtrading and FOMO. This is definitely not an exhaustive list. It's just a few pretty common things that I've seen in mine and other people's trading. But this is such a common thing and everybody is so unique that there's going to be subtle differences for everybody. And if yours isn't on this list here and you struggle with this, pop it down in the comments down below because I can certainly make more videos on more specific topics. But just a few that I think are pretty big. Lack of knowledge. And what I mean by this is when you have a rough idea of what your strategy is, but you haven't got it down to an absolute 100% knowledge, and therefore you're seeing potential setups all over the place. One of the biggest problems that I had in my past trading failures was I would be trying to trade breakouts on the likes of Tesla, Amazon, Nvidia, SPY, and I would be taking every single breakout that there was and didn't really grasp at that point the importance of why certain breakout trades worked and why some didn't. So I knew what I was trying to do. I knew I was trying to catch a breakout, but I didn't understand or didn't put enough emphasis on the importance of a level. If you've got a key daily level that is about to break out right at the market open, you're probably going to get a big move off of that. Whereas if you've just got a high of day that will set half past at like 10:35, 11, and it's going to try and break it at 12:30 when everyone's at lunch, that's probably not going to work. So that lack of knowledge meant that I was taking every trade possible when probably should have been avoiding a lot of them. A big one can be tiredness and boredom. Sometimes you may find, especially if you're in a trading a market that ebbs and flows, like the small cap market, for example, that you go through periods where you just don't get any setups. Maybe you haven't got any small caps that are ripping. Maybe you're trading the NASDAQ and it's just been going straight up or straight down all day and you haven't got an opportunity to get in. And what this can lead to is, this feeling of I want to be trading, but there's nothing really to trade, so I'm going to go and look for something else. Could also be a case of later on in the day, maybe after you've been training for a few hours, your mental your fatigue, you become fatigued, your mental capital is a bit spent, and as a result, you begin kind of giving into those bad trades a little bit easier. Another one is revenge trading, and this is a whole separate topic, but I think that if you have taken a loss, for example, that can very quickly lead to you overtrading to try to get that back. And quite often you can go, oh, I've taken this loss, but the move is still going to happen. I don't want to miss it. And as a result, you jump back into it. Now, it's not always to say that that's always the wrong thing to do, but when revenge trading leads to overtrading, leads to FOMO, it becomes a pretty big problem. Seeing others succeed, and again, this was something that I personally found a lot when I was trading and wasn't very successful trading. I would be in chat rooms and would see people posting the trades they had taken, trading completely different strategies to me, showing their success, and was like, oh, I've got to catch up here. I've got to be doing stuff as well. As a result, I'd be looking for trades. Now, the reality is, if you've got 50 trading buddies in a trading room, which would be a small Discord server, for example, if they're all trading a slightly different strategy, then you're almost guaranteed that 10 to 15 of them are going to have taken winning trades at some point over a period you haven't had any trades. It's just the way that trading works. So there's always going to be someone succeeding, even when you're not when you're not making money, when you are making money, or when you're not taking any trades at all. And then finally, when you miss a trade, and I get this massively. If you don't take a trade for whatever reason, it works out, it's going to cause some FOMO. It's going to cause that overtrading. Uh, it's important just to, like I said, recognize these and to try to find your root problem. I've had each of these over my career. That doesn't mean that every single one is applicable right now, and it won't mean that every single one or one of these is applicable to you, but you need to understand what the root cause is that is causing overtrading or FOMO. Now, what does it look like? And again, this is going to be different for everyone. I've put on what I notice in my trading when I slip into overtrading or FOMO. Looking for trades. This for me is my first red flag where nothing's really happening and I'm kind of just scouring around looking for opportunities. When I traded stocks, this would be looking at more and more stocks. Now I trade exclusively the Nasdaq. Really, it might be looking at different time frames to get different ideas of what a trade could be. It could be, as I put here, being very zoomed in to small time frames and being like, maybe I can get a setup here, being very, very zoomed in instead of looking at the whole day's worth of price action and going, we are in a 40-minute period where it has been choppy and there's been very little movement. You don't really need to look for a tiny setup in there. Ignoring doubt. This again is a big one for me. That sort of like first inkling that you go, hang on, this doesn't look right, and you just sort of completely ignore that. You cover it up. You even begin to convince yourself otherwise, which I'll go into in a second. That's a big red flag for me. When I see myself beginning to doubt something and I'm still then trying to find the evidence, that for me is a pretty big red flag. Drawing extra trend lines, drawing extra support and resistance lines, going and looking for support and resistance off of higher time frames that you don't normally use, looking at different indicators and time frames. This is something that I see quite often where someone will be essentially will go, oh, I don't like this trade all that much. It doesn't look that good. But if I bring up the RSI, which I never use and I have never tested on the strategy, it's showing it's overbought. So therefore, let's look for the short is now confirmed. The reality is there are so many different indicators out there and you can go on to so many different time frames, different tick charts that you will always be able to find one that tells you, yes, this trade that you have been debating is legitimate. Now, a big thing that I did many years ago would be if I was debating buying a small cap stock to hold for a few days, I would go onto Twitter, StockTwix, go into chat rooms, and I would see what other people were talking about. And this is exactly the same. If you take 10 people's opinion, you can ignore 9 people that say this is a worthless stock that's going nowhere and find the one that goes, this is going to the moon. And if you follow that one person, that's a really good indicator that you're ignoring the doubt and instead you're just looking at the one or two things that are telling you, or the one thing in that case that's telling you you should be going with it, which is definitely a mistake. Now, I've highlighted one major signpost here and I touched on it. The reason I've highlighted this is because this is one that came up a number of times in coaching sessions with clients. It's come up again and again in my own trading, and I think it's a really important tool that you can use in your own trading if this is something you struggle with. And that signpost is the first time you think this probably isn't a trade, or maybe we haven't got the direction I need to take this trade. Okay. Now, I really like to use the analogy of the human and the chimp. That first sign, that first thought, oh, this might not actually be my setup, thinking about it, that is very much your human. It's your logical, the logical part of your brain under relatively low stress, kind of saying, okay, if we were to turn off the emotions, turn off everything, we wouldn't take this trade. Your chimp, on the other hand, is the emotional part of your brain. It's the part that probably wants to be trading. It's maybe the inner gambler in us. It's the part of us that causes FOMO. It causes overtrading. Okay. how does it react to you saying this probably isn't a trade? In myself, and I think a lot of others, it begins to look for reasons to get rid of that doubt and to make me certain that this trade is legit. The big problem with this is that when you do this additional kind of research into why a trade is good or not, you become so convinced that it is a setup that you are convinced it is going to work out. That means that when you put the trade on, instead of looking at it from a, is this a setup or not, you're looking at this as a, is this going to work or not? When you then take a loss off of that, it will hurt you a lot more emotionally because you're so certain that it's going to work. You will have also spent quite a lot of mental energy battling, and that means that you're going to be not very well prepared for the next trade. It's one of the worst feelings to have been debating about trades, saying I'm not going to take this, and then spend the next 10 minutes convincing yourself that maybe it is the right trade, to take it eventually and to see it immediately go against you. And you just feel like a bit of an idiot for taking the trade, and the chimp has kind of done its job at that point. You will quite often as well begin hearing yourself say things like, I'm just going to try this out. I'm going to try out a slightly different approach and see how it works. I'm going to adopt a slightly different strategy here. I'm going to trade a variation of this strategy. I've heard so many people say these sort of things. These are excuses, okay? These are full out excuses to talk you into taking a trade. Maybe it'll be, I'll just take smaller size than normal, or I have a tighter stop than normal. Or it could be, well, I'm already up $200 on a day. What if I just take a bit of my profit there and risk a quarter of my profit on the day, and if it works out, I have an even bigger day, and if I have if it's a loss, I still have a green day. Maybe it could be a case of, I've seen other people take this type of trade, so I'm going to take it as well. All of this is bargaining with your human to take the trade. And the problem is, your human kind of wants to take the trade as well. It's more of a case of, it's more of a neutral bystander, if you like, and it's saying, well, I would like to take a trade, but if it's a good trade, and your chimp is going, okay, I'm going to go and prove that it is a good trade. It's going to come back with evidence, and it's going to come back with bargaining, and so your human goes, okay, fine, we can take the trade. The reason that this is a major signpost is I think that that initial thought, this probably isn't a trade, or maybe this isn't my setup, and that next process of of looking for extra reasons to trade, of bargaining with yourself to take the trade, this for me is the thing that stands out every single time, that can alert you to, oh, I'm going through this again, and at that point you can actually make an adjustment. So therefore, the way you're going to start resolving overtrading and FOMO starts with building recognition. Recognize that initial human doubt and note it down. Literally every time you go, I'm not sure if this is a trade because of this, note it down, right? Recognize every time you try to convince yourself of a trade. Same thing. Every time you go, oh, I've just caught myself looking at the RSI, which I never use, or I've just caught myself zooming out and going onto a higher time frame to try and find a level to make this a valid trade. Every time you catch yourself, just note it down. And then finally recognize the bargain with yourself. Every time you catch yourself saying something like, well, I can get in with a really small stop here, I can go in with smaller size, I can risk a certain amount of profits, all of these sort of things, write it down. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to immediately avoid taking these bad trades, but I personally have found that recognition is the biggest step towards you actually preventing the mistakes. Because when you catch yourself doing it, all of a sudden you go, I shouldn't be doing this. I know I shouldn't, and all of a sudden it begins to feel a little bit dirty. Now, what action can you take? Because recognizing it is great, but we probably need something stronger than just being like, oh, I'm doing this again. How can we then take over and take control back from the chimp? There's a few sayings that you can use in this moment, like, this time, I'm not going to take the trade. Next time I can. And the reason this works is your chimp does not like to be told no. It likes to be kind of bargains with itself. So by saying to it, this time we're not going to take it. I know you want to. That's fine. Next time we can. It kind of goes, okay, fine. We'll watch this. And if it does or doesn't work out, then great. I have that knowledge for next time. And I can take the next one anyway. So it's a little bit of kind of like reverse psychology. Because the next time you're going to say the same thing. Don't actually take the next bad trade, obviously. Just say this to yourself every single time. You can also say things like, I'm going to test what happens if I don't take this trade. This is kind of like what we were saying before with the chimp bargaining, saying, well, let's just take smaller size on this. Let's test out this different variation of my strategy. Instead, you can go, okay, I'm actually going to test and see how I do if I don't take this trade. Because I'm getting those feelings I don't like. I was aware that I was bargaining with myself. So I'm going to test out what happens if I don't take it. I'm still going to track it, but I'm actually going to test myself and see how I feel. Now, you could also do something like paper trade these trades. If you feel a real urge to get in the trades, you could open up a sim account and just say, okay, fine, we'll take it on the sim account, and we'll track all of these trades that I think I should take, or my chimp wants to take, but I know I shouldn't. I'm going to track them all. I'm going to see how they do. And then the biggest one, honestly, is to use a mental hand history to resolve the underlying issue and inject logic. What this essentially looks like is, if we were to go right back to the start of this presentation, understanding what that cause of overtrading is, go really deep and understand what it is that your chimp feeds off of to actually want to take those trades. Once you've got to a point where you understand that, you can actually have some logic that counters that thought process, that belief system. And when that's strong enough, you can use it to kind of remove the chimp's control. So that's something that Jared Tendler suggests in his book. I'd highly recommend looking more into it. His book is fantastic. All of the stuff on his YouTube channel is also amazing. Just search him up. Very, very useful resource. And then finally, set goals and track progress. Setting daily goals to catch specific thoughts, I think, is the best way to start. If you right now go away and you write out the thoughts that you're kind of aware that you have, the things that you start doing, note them down. And then say tomorrow, okay, my goal is to catch myself every time I begin drawing on extra trend lines. Every time I catch myself using a different indicator to say, oh yeah, this is a trade. That's all your goal is, just catch it. And then what you're going to do is note down how you performed in that area. How many times did you catch yourself? Once you've done it for a few days, you can begin going, okay, I'm catching myself, but I'm still actually taking those trades. So now you're going to set a goal to catch yourself and then implement something to prevent yourself from taking those trades, and tally up the times that you caught it. You might get to the end of the day and go, you know what, I caught myself 7 times. I only took 3 trades as opposed to all 7 of them. And that's already progress. If that's after a couple of days, you can do that. See what you can do in a week, see what you can do in 2 weeks. And if you can get to a point by the end of doing this for a month, you can go, I catch myself 5 times a day and I don't take the trades. Although the issue is still potentially there, you have got on top of it, and over time, you will actually see that the problem decreases. So I hope this has helped. Like I said, if you have experience or you have experienced overtrading and FOMO, which I think every trader has, put down in the comments below what causes it for you, and also what things you have done to prevent it and how successful you have been doing it. Make sure to check out the other videos. Please like the video and subscribe. It helps me out a lot, and I love building a bigger and bigger audience to share these slideshows, these videos with you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.